Commander Vex-Nine couldn't believe what he was seeing through the viewport of his battle cruiser. The third planet from this unremarkable yellow star looked, well, pathetic really. Blue oceans, green landmasses, white clouds swirling around like someone had dropped a marble in cosmic soup. How disappointing. "This is it?" he asked his navigation officer, Trill 4. "This is the planet that's been sending those annoying radio signals across half the galaxy." "Affirmative, Commander," Trill 4 replied, his three eyes blinking in sequence. "The inhabitants call it Earth. Our scouts report they've barely mastered interplanet travel. It's primitive chemical rockets, mostly." Vex-Nine let out a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a snort. In the Galactic Confederation, they had a word for species like this: baby crawlers. Civilizations so young they still thought faster than light travel was theoretical physics instead of basic engineering. "Have you seen their military capabilities?" Vex-Nine asked, settling into his command chair with the confidence of someone who'd conquered 47 worlds before breakfast. "Laughable," Trill 4 responded, pulling up holographic displays. "Nuclear weapons from the previous century, kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives. They're fighting wars with technology we abandoned during our Stone Age." The bridge crew erupted in chittering laughter. Second Officer Cree 2 wiped moisture from her gill slits. "Commander, my offspring play with more dangerous toys in their nursery pods." But Vex-Nine wasn't entirely convinced. True, these humans seemed technologically backward, but something about their radio transmissions had caught the Confederation's attention. There was an underlying aggression in their communications, a stubborn defiance that made his tentacles twitch with unease. "What about their biological capabilities?" he asked. "Physical strength, reaction times, durability." Trill 4 consulted his data pad. Average height, 1.7 meters. And binary gender system. Single heart, single brain, only 2 optical sensors. Lifespan, roughly 80 of their local years. They require constant atmospheric pressure and specific gas mixtures for survival. "Pathetic," Vex-Nine muttered. "We breathe vacuum when we're feeling energetic." The communication panel suddenly crackled to life. Static filled the bridge, followed by a transmission in the crude electromagnetic format these humans still used for interplanetary communication. The unknown vessels came a voice speaking the human language they'd learned to decode. "This is Admiral Harrison Montgomery of the United Earth Defense Force. You are approaching restricted space. State your intentions immediately." The bridge fell silent. Then Vex-Nine began laughing. It started as a low rumble in his throat sacs and built to a full-bodied roar that echoed off the walls. Soon the entire crew was joining in, their various species' laughter creating a symphony of mockery. Did they just threaten us?" Cree 2 gasped between fits of laughter. "With their little chemical-powered ships." Vex-Nine wiped tears from his 6 eyes. "Oh, this is rich. They think they can restrict our movement through space." He gestured to the communications officer. "Open a channel. Let's have some fun with these baby crawlers." The screen flickered, showing the interior of what appeared to be a human military vessel. A middle-aged man in a blue uniform sat at a command station, his face stern and weathered. Behind him, other humans moved with practiced efficiency, monitoring displays and operating controls with their primitive manipulator appendages. "I am Commander Vex-Nine of the Galactic Confederation," he announced, making sure his translator was set to the most condescending tone possible. "You will stand down your vessels and prepare for incorporation into our empire." Admiral Montgomery's expression didn't change. "I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Commander. Earth has no interest in joining your confederation." The audacity. Vex-Nine's tentacles writhed with indignation. "You misunderstand, human. This is not a request. This is a statement of fact. Your species will serve the Confederation, or it will be eliminated." "I see." Montgomery leaned back in his chair, seemingly unconcerned. "And how exactly do you plan to accomplish this elimination?" Vex-Nine's eyes narrowed. The arrogance of these creatures was astounding. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. The weapons officer Yan-7 deploy the Devourer. The bridge crew stopped laughing. Even among the battle-hardened warriors of the Confederation, the Devourer was spoken of in hushed tones. It was their ultimate weapon of terror, a bioengineered monstrosity designed to break the spirit of any civilization before the real conquest began. Sir, Yan-7 hesitated, his scaled hands hovering over the controls. Are you certain? The Devourer is typically reserved for species that have actually demonstrated resistance. Deploy it, Vex-9 commanded. Let these humans see what they're truly facing. The massive cargo bay doors of the battle cruiser groaned open. From the darkness within, something stirred. Something vast and hungry and absolutely terrifying. The Devourer emerged slowly, as if savoring the moment. It was the size of a small moon, its hide thick and armored like living metal. Thousands of tentacles writhed around its massive bulk, each one tipped with sensory organs that could detect fear from orbit. Its mouth, large enough to swallow a city, opened to reveal rows upon rows of teeth that seemed to go on forever. But the most terrifying thing about the Devourer wasn't its size or its teeth or its tentacles. It was the sound it made, a low, thrumming roar that seemed to vibrate through space itself, bypassing the ears entirely and speaking directly to the terror centers of the brain. Every species in the known galaxy had the same reaction to that sound. They ran. Magnificent, isn't it? Vex-9 said, watching the creature spread its appendages like some cosmic spider. The Devourer has consumed the populations of entire worlds. It feeds on fear as much as flesh, growing stronger with every scream, every moment of despair. On the screen, Admiral Montgomery watched the display calmly. Too calmly. Vex-9 had expected panic, pleading perhaps an immediate surrender. Instead, the human seemed almost bored. "That's quite impressive," Montgomery said after a moment. "How long did it take you to grow that thing?" "Grow?" Vex-9 blinked all 6 eyes in confusion. "The Devourer is not grown human, it is evolved. Bioengineered over centuries to be the perfect instrument of conquest." "Centuries?" Montgomery raised an eyebrow. "Wow, that's really something. We humans have a saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. But I suppose you've never encountered anything that could threaten your pet monster there." The casual dismissal made Vex-9's blood pressure spike. Nothing in this galaxy can stand against the Devourer. It has destroyed civilizations that make your entire species look like microbes. "I'm sure it has." Montgomery leaned forward slightly. "But you know what's funny about monsters, Commander? They're usually not prepared for something completely unexpected." Before Vex-9 could ask what he meant, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Tactical displays lit up with warnings and proximity alerts. Something was approaching from the planet's surface. Something small and fast and moving with impossible precision. "What is that?" Vex-9 demanded, staring at the tactical screen. Trill 4's voice cracked slightly. "Sir, it appears to be a single atmospheric craft. Human design. No energy weapons detected. No obvious threat signatures. One ship." Vex-9 laughed, but it sounded forced now. "They're sending one tiny ship against the Devourer?" The craft was indeed small by Confederation standards, barely larger than an escape pod. It moved with an elegant, predatory grace that seemed almost organic. As it approached, the visual sensors picked up more details, sleek curves, swept-back wings, a design that somehow managed to look both ancient and futuristic at the same time. Sir, Yan-7 reported, his voice tight with confusion. "The Devourer's behavioral patterns are unusual. It's not responding to the approaching craft with standard aggression protocols." Vex-9 turned to look at the massive creature floating beside his ship. The Devourer's thousands of sensory tentacles were all focused on the approaching human craft, but instead of the usual predatory excitement, there was something else in its posture. Something that looked almost like uncertainty. "Impossible," Vex-9 muttered. "The Devourer fears nothing." The small craft came to a stop roughly 1 kilometer from the massive bioweapon. For a moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched so long that some of the bridge crew began to shift nervously. Then the craft's cargo bay opened. What emerged defied every expectation Vex-9 had about human military doctrine. Instead of weapons or soldiers or some kind of technological surprise, a figure appeared in the opening. A human figure, floating in the vacuum of space wearing what appeared to be a standard environmental suit. But it wasn't the human that made the entire bridge crew fall silent. It was what floated beside her. The creature was magnificent, 4 meters of pure, predatory power wrapped in orange and black striped fur. Its body was built for hunting, all flowing muscle and deadly grace. But the most striking thing was its eyes, pale blue and intelligent, scanning the area with the calm confidence of an apex predator. Is that Trill 4's voice was barely a whisper? Is that a Terran feline? Vex-9 didn't answer. He couldn't. He was too busy staring at the impossible sight of a human and what appeared to be a massively oversized house cat floating casually in the vacuum of space, completely unprotected except for environmental suits that looked like they'd been purchased from a civilian supply catalogue. The human raised one hand and spoke into her communication device. Her voice came across the standard radio frequencies, calm and conversational. "Hello there, Ugly. I'm Captain Maya Santos of the Earth Defense Corps. This is my partner, Rex." She gestured to the enormous feline, who was now studying the devourer with the kind of detached interest a house cat might show to a particularly large moth. "We heard you had a pet. We thought we'd introduce you to ours." Vex-9 found his voice. This is your response. One human and an oversized feline." "Well," Captain Santos replied, and Vex-9 could hear the smile in her voice. "Rex isn't exactly oversized. He's just the right size for what he does." "And what exactly does he do?" Captain Santos was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had taken on a different quality. Still conversational, but with an edge that made Vex-9's tentacles curl involuntarily. "Rex hunts monsters." A devourer, which had been floating passively during this exchange, suddenly began to move. Its thousands of tentacles writhed with increasing agitation, and the massive creature started to back away from the small human craft. "That's impossible," Vex-9 breathed. "The devourer has never shown fear of anything." Rex, the enormous feline, turned his pale blue gaze toward the retreating bioweapon. Then he did something that made every member of the bridge crew take an involuntary step backward. He smiled. It wasn't a human smile with bared teeth meant to show friendliness. This was a predator's smile, lips pulling back to reveal fangs that gleamed white in the starlight. It was the smile of something that had never met a creature it couldn't kill. The devourer's retreat became more urgent. The massive creature's roar, which had been terrifying moments before, now sounded almost plaintive. Sir Yan 7 reported, his voice shaking. "The devourer's stress hormones are spiking. Neural activity suggests extreme fear responses." Vex-9 couldn't process what he was seeing. Fear? The devourer doesn't feel fear. It's been genetically modified to be fearless. Captain Santos' voice crackled over the communication channel again. "You know, Commander, that's the problem with creating artificial predators. You can give them size, you can give them weapons, you can even give them hunger. But you can't give them the one thing that makes a real predator truly dangerous." "And what's that?" Vex-9 asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. "Experience," Captain Santos replied. "Your devourer there is impressive, but it's been hand-fed its entire existence. It's never had to truly hunt, never had to face something that might actually fight back. Rex, on the other hand." She paused, and Vex-9 could see her reaching out to stroke the massive feline's head. "Rex comes from a long line of creatures that earned their place at the top of Earth's food chain the hard way." As if responding to his name, Rex began to move. Not quickly, not aggressively, but with the fluid, purposeful motion of a predator that has spotted its prey. He pushed off from the human craft and began gliding through space toward the devourer. The massive bioweapons reaction was immediate and shocking. The creature that had consumed entire civilizations, that had been the Confederation's ultimate weapon of terror, began fleeing like a startled prey animal. But Rex was faster. The chase that followed was unlike anything in the Confederation's military records. The massive devourer, trailing its thousands of tentacles behind it like a living comet, fled through space with increasing desperation. And pursuing it with patient, inexorable determination was a 4-meter feline who moved through the vacuum as if it were his natural element. "This is impossible," Vex-Nine muttered, watching his ultimate weapon flee from what appeared to be an overgrown house pet. "How is that creature even surviving in vacuum?" "Sir," Trill 4 reported, consulting his sensors, "both the human and the feline appear to be wearing modified environmental suits. But the energy readings are unusual. The suits seem to be providing more than just life support." On the tactical display, Rex had closed the distance to the devourer. What happened next would be talked about in Confederation military academies for generations to come. Rex didn't attack with claws or teeth. Instead, he simply reached out with one massive paw and gently tapped the devourer on what might generously be called its nose. The effect was immediate and devastating. The creature that had terrorized half the galaxy let out a sound that was part roar, part whimper, and completely pathetic. It curled up into a defensive ball, all its tentacles wrapping around itself protectively. Rex, meanwhile, began to purr. The sound was audible even through the vacuum, transmitted through the electromagnetic frequencies that the creatures were somehow generating. It was a deep, rumbling sound that spoke of contentment and satisfaction. The sound of a predator that had successfully established dominance without needing to shed a single drop of blood. "Your monster appears to have surrendered," Captain Santos observed mildly. "Rex has that effect on bullies." Vex-Nine stared at the tactical display in growing horror. His ultimate weapon, the bioengineered terror that had subjugated dozens of worlds, that he was currently floating in space in a defensive ball while an Earth feline casually groomed itself nearby. This cannot be happening," he whispered. "Oh, but it is," Captain Santos replied cheerfully. "You see, Commander, there's something you probably don't understand about Earth's ecosystem. We don't just have predators here. We have apex predators, creatures that have spent millions of years perfecting the art of hunting and killing. And some of us humans, well, we've learned to work with them." She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a note of steel that made Vex-Nine's blood run cold. "Rex comes from a genetic line of hunters that once brought down creatures 3 times his size. His ancestors ruled the jungles of our world for millions of years, and that instinct, that knowledge, it's bred into his very bones. Your devourer might be bigger, might be stronger, but it doesn't have what Rex has." "And what's that?" Vex-Nine asked, though he was beginning to understand. "The absolute certainty that he's the most dangerous thing in any room he enters." As if to punctuate her point, Rex looked directly at the view screen of Vex-Nine's ship. Those pale blue eyes seemed to look right through the metal and technology, directly at the Confederation commander himself. And Rex smiled again. This time, Vex-Nine took a step backward. The silence on the bridge stretched for what felt like an eternity. Every member of Vex-Nine's crew stared at the tactical display, where their supposedly invincible bioweapon remained curled in a defensive ball, while an Earth feline lazily cleaned its paws nearby. "Sir," Weapons Officer Yan 7 ventured carefully, should we attempt to recall the devourer?" Vex-Nine's tentacles twitched with barely contained rage. "And how exactly do you suggest we do that?" "Send it an engraved invitation. The creature is obviously traumatized." On the communication screen, Captain Santos appeared to be checking some kind of wrist-mounted device. "Commander," she said conversationally, "I'm reading elevated stress hormones from your ship. Are you feeling all right?" "All right?" Vex-Nine's voice rose to a screech that made several bridge officers wince. Your pet just psychologically destroyed our ultimate weapon. Oh, Rex isn't my pet, Santos corrected with amusement. We're partners. There's a difference. Pets are owned. Partners choose to work together. As if responding to the conversation, Rex finished grooming and turned his attention back to the cowering devourer. The massive feline's expression was almost bored now, like a house cat that had successfully intimidated the neighborhood dog and was wondering what to do next. This is preposterous. Vex-Nine slammed 3 of his appendages on the command console. The devourer has consumed entire species. It's genetically engineered to be the perfect killing machine. Well, there's your first mistake, Santos replied. Perfect killing machines don't exist in nature. Evolution doesn't aim for perfection, it aims for survival. And survival means knowing when you're outmatched. Navigator Trill 4 leaned over to whisper in Vex-Nine's ear canal. Sir, perhaps we should consider strategic withdrawal. Regroup, analyze this unexpected development. Withdrawal. Vex-Nine's 6 eyes bulged, from one human and an oversized feline. The Confederation Council would strip me of my rank. Better stripped of rank than stripped of life, Trill 4 muttered. On the tactical display, Rex had begun moving again. But instead of approaching the devourer, he was swimming through space in lazy circles around the paralyzed creature. His movements were graceful, almost playful, but there was something deeply unsettling about the pattern he was tracing. What is that creature doing? Second Officer Cree 2 asked, her gill slits fluttering nervously. Captain Santos glanced at her instruments. Oh, Rex is hunting. Hunting. Vex-Nine demanded. The devourer isn't moving. Exactly. Santos' voice carried a note of satisfaction. Rex has established himself as the apex predator in this area of space. Now he's simply patrolling his territory. The implications of this statement hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. Territory. The creature was claiming territory. This section of space, which the Confederation had entered with the intention of conquering, was now being claimed by an Earth feline. That's absolutely ridiculous, Vex-Nine stammered. Space doesn't have territorial boundaries for biological creatures. Tell that to Rex, Santos replied cheerfully. As if hearing his name, Rex paused in his circling and looked directly at the Confederation battlecruiser. His pale blue eyes seemed to evaluate the ship, measuring it, categorizing it. Then he did something that made every alien on the bridge question their understanding of physics, biology, and the nature of reality itself. Rex roared. The sound shouldn't have been possible in the vacuum of space. There was no air to carry sound waves, no medium for acoustic transmission. Yet somehow the roar reached them. It bypassed their audio sensors entirely and seemed to resonate through the ship's hull, through their bones, through their very souls. It was the sound of a predator announcing ownership, ancient, primal, and absolutely terrifying. Several bridge officers collapsed. Navigation Officer Trill 4 began hyperventilating through his breathing apparatus. Even the ship's artificial intelligence seemed to stutter, displaying error messages across multiple screens. Impossible, Vex-Nine whispered. How is that sound reaching us? Quantum resonance, Captain Santos explained matter-of-factly. Rex's vocal cords have been modified to create vibrations at the subatomic level. The sound travels through quantum fluctuations in space-time itself. Very useful for long-distance territorial claims. Modified. Vex-Nine's voice cracked. You modified your creature? Well, Rex needed some upgrades for space operations. Enhanced cardiovascular system for low oxygen environments, reinforced bone structure for zero-gravity movement, quantum vocal resonance for communication. Nothing too fancy. Nothing too fancy? Vex-Nine stared at the screen in disbelief. You turned a biological creature into a space-capable predator and you call it nothing too fancy? Santos shrugged. Rex volunteered for the modifications. Like I said, we're partners. He wanted to hunt in space, so we made it possible. The casual way she discussed biomodification that would make Confederation scientists weep with envy was perhaps the most terrifying thing Vex-Nine had encountered yet. These humans didn't just work with their predators, they enhanced them. They made them better. "Sir," Communications Officer QX-8 reported in a shaky voice, "we're receiving multiple transmissions from Confederation High Command. They're demanding an immediate status report." Vex-Nine looked at the tactical display. His ultimate weapon was still curled in a defensive ball. An Earth feline was patrolling the space around his ship like it owned the sector. And a human in a civilian-grade environmental suit was calmly discussing biomodification as if it were a hobby project. "What exactly am I supposed to tell them?" he asked weakly. "How about the truth?" Captain Santos suggested. "That you came to conquer Earth and instead discovered that we have better monsters than you do." "Better?" Vex-Nine's pride finally overcame his growing terror. "The Devourer has consumed worlds. It's the pinnacle of bioengineering." "The pinnacle of your bioengineering," Santos corrected. "But you made a fundamental error in your design philosophy." "Which is?" "You designed the Devourer to be feared." "We didn't design Rex to be fearsome, we enhanced a creature that was already perfect at what it does. There's a difference between creating fear and embodying it." As if to demonstrate her point, Rex suddenly accelerated. His lazy patrol pattern became a focused hunt as he streaked towards something beyond the range of the Confederation's sensors. "What's he doing now?" Vex-Nine demanded. Santos consulted her instruments. "Oh, there's a Confederation scout ship trying to sneak around behind us. Rex doesn't like being flanked." Sure enough, the tactical display suddenly lit up with proximity alarms. A small Confederation vessel had been attempting to position itself for a surprise attack. It had been, because Rex was now attached to its hull like some kind of cosmic barnacle. The scout ship's panicked communications filled the bridge. "Command, we have a hostile creature attached to our hull. It's looking through the viewports. By the void, it's smiling at us. All ships maintain distance." Vex-Nine ordered frantically, "Do not engage the Earth creature." But it was too late. 2 more Confederation vessels had moved into attack positions, and Rex had noticed them. The massive feline launched himself from the scout ship with casual precision, using its hull as a springboard to propel himself toward the next target. What followed was less a battle than a demonstration. Rex moved through the small Confederation fleet like a force of nature, not destroying the ships but simply visiting them. He would attach himself to a hull, peer through viewports with those unsettling pale blue eyes, and then move on to the next vessel. Each ship he visited immediately stopped functioning. Not because Rex had damaged them, but because their crews were too terrified to operate their controls. "This is Commander Zac-12 of the scout vessel Void Piercer," came a transmission. "The creature, it tapped on our viewport. It tapped. Like it was knocking on a door." "What kind of monster knocks?" "The polite kind," Captain Santos replied. "Rex has excellent manners when he's not hunting." "Not hunting?" Vex-Nine's voice reached a pitch that shattered a coffee cup on the navigation console. "He's terrorizing our entire fleet." "Oh no, this isn't hunting behavior. This is Rex being curious. He's never seen ships like yours before, so he's investigating." When Rex hunts, you don't get radio transmissions from the crew afterward. The implications of that statement hung in the air like a toxic cloud. This creature, this impossibly dangerous feline, was currently in exploration mode. And they were all still alive because it was feeling curious rather than hungry. "Sir," Trill 4 whispered, "I recommend immediate retreat. Full fleet withdrawal to the edge of the system." Vex-Nine wanted to argue, wanted to maintain some shred of military pride, wanted to salvage something from this disaster. But then Rex completed his circuit of the fleet and returned to Captain Santos' position, floating beside her craft like a loyal companion. The contrast was stunning. Moments before, Rex had been a terrifying force moving through space, reducing battle-hardened Confederation crews to whimpering recruits. Now he floated peacefully beside his human partner, occasionally nudging her with his massive head in what appeared to be an affectionate gesture. "You see, Commander," Santos said, reaching out to scratch behind Rex's ears, Earth's predators didn't become apex hunters by being the biggest or the strongest. They became apex hunters by being smart, adaptable and absolutely ruthless when necessary. Rex here could have destroyed your entire fleet, but that wouldn't have been efficient. Efficient? Vex-Nine croaked. Why waste energy killing when psychological dominance achieves the same result with much less effort? Rex has established that he owns this territory now. Your ships are here by his sufferance. That's a much more stable power dynamic than constant warfare. The horrible logic of it was undeniable. In less than an hour, a single Earth creature had achieved what would normally require months of siege warfare. The Confederation fleet was completely neutralized, not through destruction but through the simple demonstration that destruction was possible whenever Rex chose to make it happen. "This is impossible," Vex-Nine muttered. "One creature cannot dominate an entire battle fleet." "One Earth creature," Santos corrected, "and Rex isn't alone. Earth has millions of predators like him. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some are more specialized. And humans, well, we've learned to work with all of them." As if summoned by her words, the tactical display suddenly showed new contacts approaching from Earth's surface. More small craft, each one carrying similar energy signatures to Captain Santos' vessel. "Reinforcements?" Vex-Nine asked weakly. "Friends," Santos replied. "Rex sent out a call when he claimed this territory." The other hunting pairs wanted to come see what all the excitement was about. The approaching craft formed a loose formation around the Confederation fleet. As they drew closer, the sensors began picking up details that made Vex-Nine's tentacles curl with dread. Each craft carried a human and what appeared to be a different Earth predator. There was a human with a massive canine creature covered in thick white fur. Another paired with something that looked like a bear crossed with a tank. A third craft carried a human and what sensors identified as some kind of avian predator with wings that seemed to absorb light itself. "Commander," Communications Officer QX-8 reported in a voice barely above a whisper, "I'm detecting over 30 different craft approaching. Each one carries a unique biosignature. 30 different Earth predators, each one apparently modified for space operations, each one partnered with a human who seemed utterly confident in their creature's abilities." "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Wolfpack Squadron," came a new voice over the communications channel. "Maya, need any help with the visitors?" "All good here," Elena Santos replied casually. "Rex has everything under control, just thought the pack might want to meet our new friends." "Friends?" Captain Vasquez laughed. "Is that what we're calling them?" "Well, they haven't shot at us yet, so friends seems optimistic but appropriate." The casual banter between the human pilots, discussing the Confederation fleet as if it were a minor inconvenience rather than a military force capable of destroying planets, was perhaps the most demoralizing thing Vex-Nine had ever experienced. "Sir," Trill 4 whispered urgently, "we need to withdraw. Immediately. This situation is beyond our operational parameters." Vex-Nine looked around his bridge. His crew was demoralized, his ultimate weapon was still floating in space in a defensive ball, and he was facing 30 Earth predators who apparently viewed space combat as a recreational activity. "To open a channel to Admiral Montgomery," he said finally. The human admiral appeared on screen, his expression carefully neutral. "Yes, Commander." We withdraw our territorial claims on this system," Vex-Nine said, each word feeling like swallowing broken glass. "The Confederation will not interfere with Earth's sovereignty." "That's very wise of you," Montgomery replied. "And the Confederation's future expansion plans?" Vex-Nine looked at the tactical display, where 30 Earth predators were now casually patrolling around his fleet, like they owned the entire star system. "The Confederation will be re-evaluating our expansion policies," he said carefully. "Excellent." Montgomery smiled, and for the first time Vex-Nine noticed that human smiles could be just as predatory as feline ones. "Captain Santos, please escort our guests to the edge of the system. Make sure they don't get lost on the way out." "Copy that, Admiral," Santos replied. "Rex, you heard the man. Time to show our new friends the way home." Rex's response was a sound that was part purr, part growl, entirely terrifying. It was the sound of a predator who had successfully defended his territory and was now generously allowing defeated rivals to leave with their lives. As the Confederation fleet began its humiliating retreat, Vex-Nine couldn't help but wonder what other surprises Earth might have in store for the galaxy. If this was how they responded to a show of force, what would they do if actually threatened? He decided he never wanted to find out. Behind them, 30 Earth predators and their human partners watched the alien fleet depart, patient and vigilant guardians of a world that had just announced to the galaxy that it was under new management. Rex purred contentedly as he watched the alien ships disappear into the black. It had been a good day's work, and now his territory was secure. At least until the next uninvited guests decided to drop by.